Jeffrey here for nbots.com. Today I want to do a quick little demo on how to solder. I have here a cheap little soldering iron. It's just a 25 watt. I picked it up at a hardware store for a couple of bucks. Normally I use a Hakko 888D. That's what this one is here, which I'll show you that a little bit more here in a minute. I'm going to do some soldering on an old ESC for an example. I got two motors I want to connect to it. So all you really need is soldering iron, a wet sponge, and some solder. Now for solder, I would highly recommend you get 6040 leaded solder, fine diameter. This is 1 millimeter, and it's got to be rosin core. You want flux core solder or rosin solder because it has acid inside of the solder, and that allows it to clean the metal before you make a joint. Otherwise you won't get a very good connection. So I've heated this up. This has been on for about 5 minutes. The first thing you want to do is tin your iron, which I already did, but you just put a little bit of solder on there. As you can see, it's kind of smoky. You want to do this in an area with good ventilation. I have my fan turned off because I'm recording audio, so just wipe it off on the sponge. Now, as you can see, notice how the tip is shiny, and I'll show you my other one for comparison as well. Notice how the tip on this one is shiny as well. How it's got that transition right there from shiny to dark. That's what you want to see on your iron. If your iron looks pitted or black, it's time to replace the tip. Some people will say you can sand them. Personally, I always just replace them. Tips do last a long time if you keep them clean like this, so it's well worth it to just replace it if it's bad. You'll get a lot better solder joints that way. So bring this in a little closer. So when you're soldering something, what you want to do is you want to apply the heat to where you're going to solder. And see how that's molten? And then just put a little bit of solder on it, pull back. So what I just did there would be tinning the pad. Now notice that I touched the pad with the solder, not the solder to the iron. So you do that for each pad. Now this has already been soldered to, but it's still, I typically will add a little bit of solder to it whenever I solder a joint. So those are all tin now. Now for the wires, you do the exact same thing. So now the most common problem that I see what people do is, so I'm going to touch this, I'm going to hold it on here for a little while. Okay, now notice the insulation's burning. So now I touched the wire, okay? I touched the wire here with the solder. If you look at this, I burned the insulation, which isn't that big of a deal, but you do want to have a quick working time. Now, what is a big deal is you don't want to have a long lead like this. You want to have a short lead. So what you do is you take your handy snips and you snip it so it's short, just like so. Now with the other lead, now notice I got a little bit of buildup on there, so wipe it off. Now it's good to go. So it's just kind of a coordination thing. It's relatively quick here. So touch it, and that's it. So now both of these are tinned, and these are tinned. So now I touch the wire to the pad that I want to solder to, and I touch the pad, and that's it. That's soldered. Done. So sometimes you need to add a little bit of solder, in which case you would coordinate. You would touch the pad, add a bit of solder, and then retract. But I didn't really need to on that one. So now for this one, it's kind of hard with the camera in the way. You line up the pad, touch the pad, pull out, done, soldered. And now I'll do this other one real quick just so I can show you. So and both of these are too long, so give it a little snip. Lay it on the pad, touch it, lay it on the pad, and touch it. That's it. That's soldering in a nutshell. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below, and like and subscribe. And till next time.